Farmgal, episode number 19. My name is Deborah, and this is my co-host, Willie, and we're coming to you from my farm here in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks. This is a podcast about my crafting. I like to do all the crafts. I quilt, I sew, I crochet, I knit, I make baskets, I make jewelry. I'm willing to try any craft I can get my hands on at least once and twice if I like it. I'm also a professor of physics and astronomy at a local university, so I like to talk about science topics, and particularly women in STEM topics, which I've got one of those today. And then also, as the name indicates, I am a farmer. I am a third generation, or probably more than that if I went back and looked at my history, family farmer, and I live here on 170 acres, which has been in my family for at least 3 generations. And I raise grass-fed beef cattle. I also raise horses and show quality rabbits, heritage poultry, and I'm also a haven for some rescued donkeys, rescued miniature horses, and a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost. And as you can see from my little co-host here, I am fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 5 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside cats. So, so I like to talk about all of those things, and who knows what's going to come out of my mouth, basically. So if you're a new viewer, welcome to the Funny Farm, and if you're a returning viewer, I'm so glad you're coming back to see what's going on this week on Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, episode number 19. Okay, if you're looking for me on social media, we do have a Ravelry group for the podcast. It's Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. You can also find me on Ravelry as Doc Firewoman. Also, I am on Instagram as Doc Firewoman, and then my farm Facebook page is the same as my YouTube channel name. It is Buckthorn Farms if you want to keep up with all the goings on here on the farm. We had just finished a charity make-along about 3 weeks ago, and I did get those prizes in the mail, so those prizes should be on the way to all the winners. And I've gotten the prizes, the patterns to the people on Ravelry, so hopefully they're going to enjoy those. So everything should be underway now. I want to thank one more time my donors for prizes, which were Leon Alexander Yarns, Tesla Knits with some project bags, and then Paradise Fibers. Just a reminder, Leon Alexander Yarns has a website. He has some beautiful hand-dyed yarn. He's located in Oklahoma City. He is going to be at the East Texas Fiber Festival, and I also saw where he's going to Stitches Midwest. Tesla Knits, Jasmine, she has an Etsy shop, which she is keeping open for right now because she got a huge influx of orders. She got mentioned on a blog, and it really made it an uptick in her orders. So if you like her bags, you should go check them out. She's got some really cute, particularly sciencey themed bags, which is right up my alley. And then Paradise Fibers had asked me to do a review, so I donated some of the materials that they sent me to review. Now, we are going to have another giveaway. I reached over 100 subscribers on YouTube. Yay! Yay, really, yay, yay. Okay, so, and Wally wants to say yay too. So we are over 100 subscribers now, and I'm very tickled about that. So I am going to do a giveaway. I'm going to do a giveaway both on my Ravelry page for the group, or for the podcast, and then also on Instagram. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some project bags. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use this pattern from In Color Order, which is Jenny Baker. And I'm going to make some project bags, some lined drawstring project bags. And I'm going to give 2 of those away. I'm going to give one away on my Instagram, and I'm going to give one away on my Ravelry group for the podcast. So, and because it is Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, this is going to be the main fabric for the bags. It's farm animals. And I'm going to put some other little bits and bobs in there. I'll probably post a picture once I get it all together so you can see. But anyway, so I'm going to give away a drawstring bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a thread on Ravelry with a little prompt on there. And you can go there and answer a question. And then I'll have a drawing probably in a couple of weeks. Probably won't be next week, but probably in a couple of weeks. Let's see, what day? Today is July 24th. Today's my grandpa's birthday. Oh, wow. So I'm probably going to wait and draw in about 2 weeks for that. So I'll put the closing date on the thread, and also when I post the Instagram picture, I'm going to get one of these bags I hope made up this evening, and I'll post a picture on there. And you can enter both places if you want to. That's fine with me. So, yay! All right, the other thing is sometimes I do post little shorty videos about different things. If you just saw my most recent one where me and my friend Carol went gandering up through the Ozarks. We went up to Jasper, Arkansas, which is a nice little sort of retreat area on the Buffalo National River. And the Buffalo National River was America's first wild and scenic river. And then we went over to Low Gap. We crossed over to Low Gap and had lunch at the Low Gap Cafe, and which has great food if you're ever in Arkansas and you're up that way. Go eat at the Low Gap Cafe, and you can't miss it because it's the only thing there. You're just driving through the mountains, and then all of a sudden there's a place to eat and a cemetery and a couple little houses, and then you're driving through the mountains some more. And then we went down to Ponca and did some geocaching. So I posted a little video on there if you wanna look and have a look at that. So yeah, so that's how you can find us if you want to participate. We are going to start a new make along probably about the 1st of September. It is going to be charity focused again. I'm kind of ironing out the last of my ideas on that about what I want to do, and I posted a thread on the Ravelry group if you've got some ideas too what might be good. I'm thinking as we're starting to get into winter, making things to donate to like homeless shelters and things like that might be our theme, but we'll see. But anyway, so yeah, y'all go over there and check that out. So now we're going to move on to finished objects. Okay, y'all, I have got a finished object this week, and boy, it is a mountain that I climbed, but it is done. In my April 9 Designs Playful Otters bag. She is on Instagram as April 9 Designs on Etsy, and she has an Etsy shop. Great bags, great value for money, and she also, if you follow her on Instagram, has giveaways fairly regularly, so go check her stuff out. In this bag, if you've been watching, you know what's in this bag, and by gosh, it is done. Now the ends aren't woven in yet, but it is done. In this bag, I have my Helen Stewart Impressionist Mystery Knit-Along Shawl. Oh, where is the angels singing when you need them? I even did the Pico bind off, y'all. That sucker is done. Yippee skippy. I am so tickled about that. Y'all have no idea. Let me see if I can throw it on here where it looks like something. Probably not, but we're going to try anyway. Alright, so this shawl was part of the mystery knit-along that she did back in the spring. You were supposed to pick out yarns that were sort of inspired by Impressionist paintings. And what y'all may not know about me is back when I was in high school, I was quite the little art student. Let me pull my ponytails out there, or my dog ears. Okay, so here we go. Well, it don't look too bad. Don't look like the dog's wallered on it or anything. So, there you go. Done. Stick a fork in it. It is done. And you know what? After I finished it and I hung it up and looked at it, I really do like these color choices. I was not crazy about them when I was working on it. Maybe just because I was tired of it. I don't know. But I really am happy. That I think putting that dark on there just finally set it all off. So the colors, the light color is Heads Will Roll, and the green is Maple Leaf, both by Primrose Yarn Company. And then the dark is Area 51 by Kimarie's Knacks. So I'm way after the deadline on the knit along, but I don't care. I have slayed the dragon. It is done. Woo! My wrists are killing me because I stayed up till midnight last night finishing it, but I finished it. Yay, me! Somebody said, what are you going to do with this thing? And I said, I can't decide if I want to give it away or keep it, but now that I've seen it and now that it's done, I ain't giving this thing away. Y'all can pry it out of my cold dead hands because there is too much work in this to give it away. Probably. Depends on who it is. Anyway, so I have finished my Helen Stewart Curious Handmade, Mystery Impressionist, Mystery Knit-Along Shawl, and I am tickled to death that it is done. That is the only FO I've got this week, but by gosh, when I started at the end of last week, I was 75% of the way done, and I finished this sucker. These rows are 500 plus stitches long, and that picot bind off is no joke. There's a lot of them little stinking picots on here, probably about 100. I think I counted or did some math, and I think it's around 100 of them. But you know, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. I just put on some episodes of Who Do You Think You Are on YouTube, and I just did it. So it is done, and I am tickled to death. And now we're going to move on to works in progress. Okay guys, I've got a couple of works in progress. I was very monogamous with that shawl, that Impressionist knit-along shawl this week. So I really haven't worked on much, but I did work on a couple of things. I have been working on my log cabin quilt. Okay, I am down to, let me just show you a few of the blocks here. I'm down to putting the last of the dark strip sets on, and then it will go together. So I've got one more set of dark strips that will go on, and then the blocks are done, and then I will set them together like center to center like that, so it'll look something, I don't know if I can hold all three of these up, but I'll try. It's going to look, well, you can't tell a thing about that. Where's my picture? Oh, here it is. So it's going to look something like that, except the colors will be different. Okay. So I've got one more set of these dark strips to put on, and it's just random, kind of scrappy looking, which is fine by me. Okay. And then I will sew it up, and it's a lap quilt, so it's going to be this size. It's going to be 3 by 4. It's got 12 blocks total, and then I will get that sewed up, and then I'll decide if I'm going to try to quilt it or if I'm going to send it off and have it done. So I've got that. I've got one more set of strips. I may try to do those this afternoon. I've already got my feeding and my chores done, except for feeding the ponies outside, so I may try to get those sewed on right quick. The other thing, I did put a few rows on my Reyna shawl. I want to try to get this done by the end of the month. I've got 6 days, 7 days now. Got a week, basically, because my friend Vanessa has got a Finish It make-along over on her podcast, A Historian Knits. She is doing it a Finish It make-along, and anything that was started before April 1st is eligible. Okay, so I started this last summer. Okay, I thought I was going to make this in time to enter in the county fair last year, and I did not get done with it. So, yeah, so I'm just kind of freelancing the repeats here. I'm not even counting. I'm just doing some garter for a while, and then doing some eyelets for a while, and then doing some garter. But anyway, so I'm trying to get this done by next week. Okay, to enter in her Finish It make-along. So go check out her podcast, which is really cool. I enjoy her podcast. I like seeing her daughter Amelia and hearing about their dog. She has that Finish It make-along going on, and she will take pretty much any craft, cross-stitch, sewing, quilting, crochet, knitting, whatever. So, but it had to have been started before April 1st. So this is definitely eligible because I started it last summer. Those are the only 2 works in progress that I'm going to show you this week. I've got others, but I haven't worked on them, like I said, because I've been trying to get that, what is that bug on you, Willie? Oh, it's a ladybug. Willie's got a ladybug on him. Bless his heart. I guess he needed some luck. But anyway, so though I haven't got anything much done on those other ones, but I did talk to Antonia. Thank you for the advice about how to work the chart. I think you're right on that We Were Seeds shawl, so thank you for that. I appreciate you. So now we're going to move on to future crafting. Okay, in future crafting, I'm not very organized this week because I've got the yarn for one thing and the pattern I don't have printed out yet. And then on the other thing, I don't have anything to show you, and I'm going to tell you about it. And on another thing, I do have something to show you. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Laura at a Crocheting Whovian podcast is doing a knit-along starting on August 1st. She has published a cowl pattern. It is called the Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset Cowl. And she is doing a knit along on that starting, like I said, on August the 1st. And I have really enjoyed getting to visit with them. They have a virtual knit night that I've participated in a couple of times. And I really enjoy getting to visit with all the people on there. It's very fun and refreshing just to be yourself. Because sometimes being yourself on social media tends to bite you in the butt. I've been following a couple of things that have been going on. I'm like, y'all, can't we all just get along? We ain't all going to like each other. That's just life. Okay, we ain't all going to like each other. We ain't all going to get along. And even if you like somebody, sometimes your feelings are going to get hurt. And you're going to get your tail in a twist. And you either go on or you don't. But if you don't get along, then whatever. I mean, you can't get... We're not in junior high. You can be friends with this person. You can be friends with this person, even if they're not friends with each other, as long as this one has not tried to commit a felony against this one. Can we not just all... be that way? Unless, this person is a racist, xenophobe, homophobe, then no, I can't be friends with this person. But other than that, just because these two people are having a go at each other does not mean that you cannot be friends with them, okay? There's no custody battles and stuff like that over friendships. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the cow. What are you doing, Willie? Leave him alone. Anyway, Willie is looking at something. But I got to thinking about it after I saw where she was doing the make-along, and I decided I am wanting to use some very special yarn for this. This is some beautiful yarn that I bought back in December, and so this will qualify for the Happy Knitting Podcast, Julia's Summer Stash Down. This is Expressions Fiber Arts. This is called The Lights Are Turned Way Down Low. And it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful combination of colors. I just love that dark, dark blue with that gold and all that. So I am going to use this for that cowl. Now, I don't have the pattern because I haven't gone into work to print anything out. I've been into my office twice this summer, and I had to look up to finally see when I had to go back to work. It'll be nice to get a paycheck again, and I'll be glad to be back on campus and see my students, but... I've enjoyed this summer too, but I am excited to go back to work and see my students. But anyway, so I'm going to do this. It's a fingering weight cowl. I'm going to use this for that cowl pattern. I think that will be really pretty. Okay, the other one, I don't have a thing to show you, but I want to tell you about it. Alex at Two Hearts Crochet posted on her Instagram feed that she is doing a crochet along for a sea life Afghan. Now, it is one of those Grafghan type Afghans where you use the corner to corner technique. I have never done that before, so I started watching some of her instructional videos, but I really was charmed by the blocks that I saw. So it's where you can make the picture in the blocks by changing color and stuff. So she's got some great tutorial videos on her website about it. So if you crochet and you've never tried one of those, this would be a good opportunity to maybe learn, because she's got some great tutorials. She's the one who did the solar system blanket and also wrote the pattern for the Kraken shawl. So I really like her style of pattern writing. I like the fact that she is so helpful with her video tutorials. I love that she does a lot of science themes. She has a mystery amigurumi club, and this month's doll was Bill Nye the Science Guy. How cool is that? But anyway, so so I'm going to try to do that starting in September. That starts September the 7th, I believe. So that gives me a little bit of time to finish the cowl and finish the shawl and get most of my stuff done for the county fair, because the county fair, I think, it's not the week of that Labor Day is in, but it's the following week, which may be that week. I don't know. I need to look it up and see. Anyway, yeah, it's because I got to get started thinking about that too. So that's the second thing that I'm going to do in the future. The last thing is sort of a project that I started a long time ago, and I should do it to finish it for the Finish It Make-Along, but I don't think I can get it done in the next week. Many years ago, I found this really cool fabric. I just love the graphic nature of this fabric. Now, there used to be a little hole-in-the-wall fabric store downtown in Russellville before downtown went through its renovation and became all modern, and they have art walks, and they have fancy restaurants and coffee shops and all that. There was a little hole-in-the-wall fabric store there, and it was literally like you know, these old-timey downtown stores with the huge high ceilings and maybe 2 light bulbs hanging off there. But she had tons of, like, I guess she got millions and stuff, fabric, and you could get stuff for really super cheap. So I got several yards of this fabric and just fell in love with it. And I couldn't decide what to do with it, so I thought, Christmas tablecloth. Because I need another one. I've got a whole drawer full of them in yonder in a chest of drawers, but that was before I found all those. So Christmas tablecloth. So I decided I wanted to use the stars. I've got this ruler that you can cut these star pieces out of. And then, instead of piecing it, I decided that I would satin stitch it. So I've put fusible web on the back of these to fuse them down to hold them steady. And then I am satin stitching around all them. I think I've got about 6 or 7 done. I think I've got about that many more to go. I could finish that. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, so I want to finish this. That's one of my future crafting goals, is to finish this for the Finish It Make Along, and then maybe enter it in the county fair. Anyway, like I said, I'm very motivated to put things in the county fair. I'm not going to have as many entries as last year. I went a little overboard last year, but I think because a lot of my stuff's burnt. We'll get to that when we get to farming, but my garden is not doing so hot right now. So anyway, so that is my future crafting. That's all the crafty content. I'm gonna come back and talk a little bit about acquisitions, but my acquisitions this week again are not yarny or really even crafty in nature. They are birthday gifts from my birthday party that the kids had for me at the barn. So anyway, we'll come back and talk about acquisitions. If you're not gonna go on to that, thank you for stopping by. And if you want to hear about science and farm life and stuff, let's move on to acquisitions. Okay, my acquisitions this week are all mostly related to my birthday, which was earlier this month, but I was just able to catch up with a couple of friends and then the barn kids this week. First of all, I saw my friend Sasha, who I make baskets with. We were visiting a little bit last Friday. I went and had lunch with her. She was kind enough to buy me lunch, which she surely didn't have to do, and this is squeaking a bunch. Sorry, the styrofoam is squeaking. But she had me a really cool birthday gift, and I was so tickled when I saw it. If I can get it out of the darn box. There we go. I have to be a little careful with it because I don't want to break it. Anyway, so we went and we were visiting about kind of what we want to do this year with the kids at Adkins, because she's going to help us again this year, and I think I've kind of hit on the idea of what we're going to do, and I'll talk more about that later, because it's really a cool piece of Arkansas history. But anyway, it's a narwhal mug. Is that not the stinking cutest thing you've ever seen? It's narwhal. It's made by Smoko. Alright, is that not the stinking cutest thing you've ever seen? So, yeah, Smoko, and it's in California. They're a company out of California. And it's just the stinking cutest thing I've ever seen. And then she found to go with it a little hand sanitizer narwhal. Oh, like mom and baby. Okay, it holds little hand sanitizers. And the sanitizer names are really cute. There's Be Gnarly. I'm Really a Mermaid. And I love this one. Be Right Back, My Unicorn Needs Me. So, yay, narwhal. I love this. This just made me laugh so hard when I opened it. So, anyway, so that's a very sweet gift from my friend Sasha, who I make baskets with, and we have planned our next basket making adventure. We all ordered a kit that was the same, but our next basket adventure is going to be what we call free-for-all day, because she's got a basket she needs to make for an upcoming class, and I've got a basket that I ordered that I want to make, and then her mom's got a kit that she wants to make. So we're going to have a free-for-all day. That should be interesting, but that's always a lot of fun because we get together and we have a meal together usually, and then we make baskets. And sometimes we have to, you know, we could not videotape it because there'd be a whole lot of beeping out of words, but we always have a good time. So let me put my narwhal mug safely back in his box here, and then we will look at my other nifty things. Now, the kids at the barn, Miss Marianne decided we would have a tea party, an elegant tea party for my birthday, because she knows that I love to collect dessert plate sets and tea sets. So we got together, we dressed up, the kids all dressed up. I dressed in clean clothes. That's about as much as they got from me, but next year I'll do better because it's going to become a tradition apparently. And we used the linen napkins and the linen tablecloths and the china and the silver, and we talked about, you know, Miss Marianne talked about, you know, Emily Post and how you learned how to use things like put the napkin on your nap and hold your plate just so. And then I talked about what I mentioned last week on the podcast about, you know, the bloodline or the memories contained in those things. So it was really kind of neat, and I'm going to put a little picture montage together that I'll put at the end of this segment so that you can see everything. But they also got me some gifts. Now last week I showed my Bleeding Heart handkerchief and my picture of flame. So this week I'll show you some of the other things that I got. I got a really sweet hand-drawn card and then a gift certificate to the local big box craft store from the little girl who rides Gusty. Her name is Zoe. So she drew that for me. Isn't that pretty? It's a rose. So I was real tickled with that. Then the little girl that rides Flame gave me a really sweet card with some really sweet things written inside of it. And they know I love dogs, so they got me this really pretty card. Okay. Then I got another really sweet card. Notice the cards all have dogs, and this family has pugs, so I'm not surprised by the pugs. And they got me a really pretty necklace and earring set that I'll wear next year at my tea party. So, because I've already figured out what fabric I'm going to make my dress out of next year, because we're going to go all out next year. Miss Marianne's daughter, who I've shown the yarn bowls that she's made before, made me this really cool mug. She also made me a, remember the chalice that I got at Christmas that says, "For the blood of my enemies." So she made me this really cool mug. Isn't that a cool color? And then I love the handle on it. Look at that. Isn't that neat? She does have an Etsy shop. I think her kiln is messed up right now, so she may not have a lot in her Etsy shop. But I'll link to her Etsy shop in the description box. Then Miss Marianne got me a new lunch bucket, lunch tote. Okay, little. It's got a bottle and then a sandwich box and an ice pack in it, so I can reuse it instead of having to use the bags. Okay, sandwich bags. She also got me some hair bands for my horse, and then some little My Little Pony stickers. And then my card from her and her family was My Little Pony. And then she also got me these beautiful flowers that are sitting here. And last but not least, she always loves to document pictures, you know, events and pictures. So she got me this really cool picture frame with a picture of Bo and me in it. And then she gave me some other pictures in case I wanted to trade them out. So that's me and Bo at the Halloween costume contest. I'm the astronomy professor, and then you can't really tell, but I decorated him up with a livestock marker. I do constellations all over him. And then this is the little girl that has Tuffy. Tuffy and Bo are half siblings, so that's them at the horse show in March. And then this is a picture, I can't remember, I think this was at the end of Jump Clinic maybe this year. We all wore our shirts. So that was the end of Jump Clinic, and that's some of the kids, most all of the kids at the barn. So we've got a full bill over there right now. I'll tell y'all all about that. But anyway, so she gave me that beautiful picture frame. I really like that picture of Bo and me out on the trail, so I'll probably keep that one in there for a while. But then I can change it out if I want to. So, yeah. And then, of course, last but not least, they know me well. I can always use more canning jars. So those are my acquisitions for this week. It's all gifts. So I do have something that I bought for myself coming in the mail that I will show. It's not here yet. It's not yarny in any way, but it is something very special to me. So when it comes, I will show it to you. So yeah, so we're going to move on and talk about science. Okay, guys, I wanted to start this week's science segment with letting you know that I found some interesting articles about topics that I've talked about in the past. One of them is about the blue Morpho butterfly. It's from PBS, and remember I talked about structural blue some time back, about most of the blue that we see in animals in nature is not pigment blue, it's structural blue. It's caused by diffraction of the light. The blue Morpho butterfly has scales on its wings that causes the light to diffract and make it appear blue, when in reality it does not have blue pigment in it. The other one is about the Suffolk Punch, which is a draft horse from Britain. It's a breed from Britain, and it's one of Britain's oldest draft horse breeds, and it is one of the breeds that is on the Livestock Conservancy's critically endangered list. And actually it is the breed of draft horse that I would love to have here at the farm when I start my educational nonprofit. I actually am in touch with a lady who does Save a Punch, which is the Suffolk Punch Rescue. But anyway, so I'm going to link those two articles so that you can go and read them, because those are things that we've talked about in the past. But one of the things that I wanted to talk just briefly about, and I'm going to talk about this, touch on this more throughout the next while, is science literacy. First of all, there's an article that I'm going to link about words that have been co-opted by popular media that don't mean the same thing when you use them in everyday vernacular than they mean in science. And the one that gets my back up quicker than anything is, it's just a theory. Okay. To a scientist, a theory is something that has been, it's a hypothesis which has been borne out through experimentation. Now, for science to be science, it has to be reproducible. Okay, I have to, if I say I have discovered this phenomenon, then I have to publish my research in a peer-reviewed journal. And what needs to happen is other scientists who I don't know, who I don't have anything to do with, or even rival scientists need to take my procedures and try to reproduce my results, or need to use their own procedures that are a way to test this and reproduce my results. That's science, okay? Now, a theory can never be proven true. You can never, and this is true just in general, critical thinking. You can never prove something true. You can never have the same thing happen enough times in a row to say that it's going to happen that way every time. Because all it takes is one negative result or one null result to show, no, it doesn't happen every time. But it's not false yet. So, for example, for 2,000 something years, the idea was everything revolved around the earth. Because if you go outside and you look at the sky, sun comes up in the east and goes down in the west. Stars come up in the east, go down in the west. Those pesky planets, they weren't quite doing what they were supposed to, but they had an explanation for that. So it was called the geocentric cosmos. And the geocentric cosmos was posited by Ptolemy. And basically his model looked like a whole bunch of spirograph wheels. You had little wheels on big wheels, and you had imaginary bars attaching the moon to the earth, and the earth, the sun to the earth, and Mercury and Venus to the earth, and then these other planets didn't have them. So it was just a little bit wacky doodle. But it kind of sort of explained the motion, even though it was very complicated. Now, the idea in science, and I know a lot of people will laugh at this, but it's called Occam's razor. Usually the simplest explanation is the one that's right. If you have to start adding magical or invisible bars and spirograph wheels and things like that, usually you're trying to force something to work that doesn't really work. But because the idea of having the earth in the center was a pleasing idea to the philosophers, and also from a religious aspect, it was a pleasing idea to have earth here and then have the heavens, be the perfect impermeable world. That was the way it stayed. If you read anything about Hypatia or Hypatia of Alexandria, she was one of the last people who proposed that this model was actually wrong. And she actually had been the daughter of the librarian of Alexandria, librarian of the Library of Alexandria, and then she took it over, but then it was destroyed, and she had read most of the information in there, so she had it committed to memory, but unfortunately she was killed for various reasons that we won't delve into, because I have my opinions, and it's not it's not a way to make friends, sharing my opinions about that. But at any rate, she was killed because basically she was a loud, mouthy woman, and I appreciate that. I tell my students, you see a bunch of monks coming down the hall with buckets of clamshells getting ready to kill me with them, please do something to stop them, or at least tell me they're coming. But anyway, for 2,000 years, basically, that model was accepted because it kind of sort of seemed to work, even though, and we had the Dark Ages. People weren't really worried about science. They were just worried about survival. And the Inquisition and all that stuff. It's a good way to keep people quiet is to threaten them with their life. If just squelch dissent, start burning people at the stake, and that'll shut people up usually in a hurry. Except for Galileo, who he didn't create the telescope, but he used the telescope to look at the heavens, and he was one of the first people to do that with it. It had been used for naval purposes prior to that, but he looked at the sky. One of the things that he looked at, now he looked at the sun, which don't do that. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Don't look at the sun with a telescope unless you have a solar filter. But he saw spots on the sun, which said that the sun was not a perfect sphere, a perfect form. And then he saw the Galilean satellites of Jupiter, which showed that there was things orbiting something other than the Earth. And bit by bit, gradually, the geocentric model got taken apart, and we now know that the sun is at the center of the solar system, but we are by far not the center of the universe. And sadly, many people find out that they are not the center of the universe, and that makes them very upset because they really thought that they were, and that the sun rose and set on their behinds, and it doesn't. In fact, there is no center to the universe, but we'll talk about that another day. Anyway, so science literacy. Let me go. So I got off track there, but science literacy, you have to watch out for words being used in a non-scientific way, trying to make them sound like science. The other thing that you have to watch out for are these, what I call clickbait headlines. Science discover fifth force in the universe. That's an article that I just read. Cure for cancer discovered. Red meat will kill you dead. All these very, outlandish or very, excitable, if somebody was saying them, you could just see lots of exclamation points after them. Those headlines are usually very misleading. The article about the fifth, there's a video that's going around on Facebook right now, and they've got some neat stuff about it, but I'm trying to look at it over here. The idea of the headline says, physicists confirm the fifth force of nature. Then when you get to reading the article, it says, they've discovered this particle. It could be a fifth force. It hasn't been verified yet. The study hasn't been reproduced. And, if you were around when, we found particles traveling at the speed faster than the speed of light, and that was a huge big headline. It was in the New York Times, it was in all these papers. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. No, they didn't. There was a mistake in their experiment. That didn't get that ended up down at the bottom of the back page, But so you have to watch out for these very misleading clickbait headlines. Okay? Especially if it comes from a non-vetted scientific source. Now, let me hasten to add, there have been cases where peer-reviewed articles have managed to get past peer review even though they were faked or wrong or misleading. That happens very rarely. Of the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of peer-reviewed articles that are published every day that are great science, or every year that are great science, there are going to be mistakes made because it's human endeavor. But get your science from a scientific source. Don't get it from some Facebook hooty group. Now, and I like to read some of the articles from some of the people on Facebook that publish things, like David Wolf. He has some good inspirational, motivational articles, but I do not trust him when it comes to scientific articles that he publishes. I go to the primary source and I read the article for myself, and if it doesn't follow the rules of, is it reproducible, does it have good data, and has it been peer reviewed, then I'm not going to listen to it. I'm just going to be like, no, thanks, appreciate you, but, you know, I'm not interested in this. So make sure you educate yourself about science. That's one of my big hooty-hoo ordeals, and that's one of the things that I try to teach my students, is to educate themselves about science. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is right now in the nighttime sky, I'm wearing my astronomy shirt. In the northern hemisphere, you can see the summer triangle. Now, the summer triangle is not a constellation. It's what's called an asterism. An asterism sounds like it ought to be a constellation, but the 88 constellations have sort of been codified by, I don't know if it's the International Astronomy Union or whoever, but the summer triangle is another familiar shape that takes the 3 brightest stars out of 3 constellations and makes a big triangle in the sky. Now, it's a nice thing to know because if you're trying to line up a telescope, those stars are great to use for that. But it is the brightest stars in Cygnus, so Deneb, which is the tail of the swan, Altair, which is in Aquila the eagle, and then Vega, which is in Lyra, the harp. Okay, and they make a big, they're in the southern, sort of the south, I believe southeastern part of the sky after dark right now, and they're called the summer triangle. So you can go out there and see a big triangle. So go out there and check that out. The last thing that I want to talk about is about a woman in science this week. And let me pull my screen back up here. My computer went to sleep. Excuse me just a second. Oops. Well, you would know that I'm typing my password wrong. Okay. I saw this on Twitter, and it's, if you've seen the books Quantum Physics for Babies or Einstein for Babies or whatever, there's a science writer who his job is, or he's a professor, but for fun, he writes children's books about science. And I know that my friend Renee that just had her baby, she's gotten some of those books for her little boy. So he was talking about Noether's theorem, Emmy Noether's theorem. Okay, Emmy Noether, I wanted to talk about her because she's an interesting woman in science. Now, if you have a fidget spinner, you can do this experiment really easily, but I don't have one, so I'm going to have to do it with this. Okay, so Emmy Noether was from Germany, and at the time she lived, she was born in 1882 and she died in 1935. Women were not allowed to study mathematics in college. Okay, that was just, no, you didn't do that. Mathematics or physics or whatever. And there were a few that bucked the trend, like Marie Curie and Emmy Noether. Emmy Noether wanted to study mathematics, so they let her audit the courses. She sat in all the courses, and then she finally managed to persuade them to let her take the qualification exam, which she passed, of course, probably made 100% on it. And finally, they said, oh, okay, we'll award you your degree. And she eventually ends up getting a PhD. And they said, okay, well, you can teach for us. Because we're a woman, we're not going to pay you. We're not going to pay you. Okay. But she did. And she published what was called Noether's theorem, which kind of connects the idea of conservation laws of physics to mathematics. And what she basically said is, if you have something that is symmetric, so like this button is symmetric, and I've just run some string through it like this little toy you used to make when you were a kid. Okay? Now, if you have something that's symmetric, if you change the rotational axis of the symmetry, so when you do this, you have to pull on it. You have to apply a force because the button is winding clockwise. Don't get this in your hair or you'll regret it. The button is winding this up clockwise, and then it's unwinding and going counterclockwise. So what's happening is it's changing the direction that it's turning. Okay? And so we're changing the direction of what it's called its angular momentum. Now, you can see this with a fidget spinner. If you take your fidget spinner and you spin it and then you try to flip it over, it's hard to do if it's spinning. If it's not spinning, you can flip it over really easy. Boy, my wrist is really hurting from working on that shawl. You can flip it over really easy, but if it's spinning, what you're doing is you're changing the direction of the angular momentum vector. Okay, the way you do the direction of the angular momentum vector, it's just like bolts or screws, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if you turn something to the right, right, okay, the angular momentum vector is going to point one way. If you turn it to the left, it's going to point to the opposite way. That's why the bolts and the screws are able to thread in and out the way that they do. So she said if you are changing the axis of symmetry, that the rotation is happening, if you're changing the rotational axis that the symmetric object is rotating around, you have to apply a force. So if you're having to apply a force, you're changing something. So something is being changed, which means it's not being conserved. But if you take your fidget spinner, I can't do it with this, but if you take your fidget spinner and instead of flipping it over, you just move it side to side, that's easy to do while it's spinning. Because you're not changing the axis around which it's rotating, which is straight up and down. Okay, but when you're flipping it over, you're going from it pointing straight up to pointing straight down. Okay, so Noether's theorem, in a nutshell, says that if you change that axis, something's changing, and if you don't change that axis, everything is staying constant, even though you're moving that thing, so something is conserved. And in this case, it's linear momentum that's conserved. You can also see this in ice skaters. You know, when you've got the ice skater that's spinning around and they've got their arms out and they're spinning slow, and then they bring their arms in and they speed up really fast, that's conservation of angular momentum, okay? Because when they're spread out, what's called their moment of inertia is really big, and when they're tucked in, it's really small. So something went down, so something has to go up to compensate, and so they spin faster. All right. So Noether's theorem is a way, and it's actually given us some ideas about quantum physics. It's given us some information about conservation laws, like I mentioned. So she was a really important contributor to the understanding of modern physics, and she wasn't even paid to teach for a while. They finally, I think, started paying her. But Emmy Noether. So I'm going to link to that series of articles. He's got some really cool videos in there where he tries to explain Noether's theorem to his 5-year-old boys, and then they go up in difficulty. So it starts out with kindergarten, and then high school, and then undergraduate. So he does a really good job of breaking it down and making it easy to understand for everybody, which I think is great. So I'm going to link those, and so that's the end of our science segment this week. So we're going to move on and talk about farm life. Okay, so Wally decided he would join me for the farm life segment today. The first thing that I want to do is I want to read a piece, and it's not really off of a farm page, but if you're on Facebook, there was a dog called Gremlin, and I followed her for many, many years. She was a pit bull who was rescued, and she'd been very, very badly mistreated, and her family is the ones that have the Mr. Mo project that saves senior dogs, okay? Unfortunately, you know, Gremlin was getting older and her health was declining, and she recently passed away, and it was a huge blow to her family because she'd been their dog for so many years. And, you know, that's one of the hard things about having dogs or cats. Their lives compared to ours are so short. Somebody's scratching outside the door. Their lives are so short, and sometimes, you know, it's very hard to putting yourself through this, but as I've mentioned before, taking care of these little guys is sort of part of my sacred duty. And they shared a beautiful picture of Gremlin's dad and a couple of the dogs. Gremlin was one of them, and I believe the other dog's name was Dave, that they lost out of the project as older dogs. And they shared a beautiful quote that I wanted to read to you because I think it pretty well sums up my feelings. It's an excerpt from a writer named Irving Townsend, and excuse me as I look down, it says, "We who choose to surround ourselves with lives that are even more temporary than our own live within a fragile circle, easily and often breached. Unable to accept its awful gaps, we would still live no other way. We cherish memory as the only certain immortality, never fully understanding the necessary plan." And I think that in a nutshell explains why I do what I do. You know, we just lost one of the dogs at the barn, and even though she wasn't my dog, I still had an attachment to her because I saw her often. She was a very sweet dog, always happy, and we lost her very suddenly last week, and it broke my heart. You don't take on these little lives, especially older ones, lightly, because you know that you're most likely going to outlive them. But it's what we do. So, anyway, going on to talk about some other things here on the farm. It has been, the last few days have not been so bad, but last week, when I was podcasting last week, and then after that, it has been brutally hot here. I mean, ridiculously hot. There were some records broken, both in Arkansas and I believe in Oklahoma. There were days when it was just like walking into an oven outside. Now, Scientific American shared a really interesting and sort of scary animation of these, what they call the high temperatures for I believe it's the last 100 years. And it starts out, and it's for each day. So, in the wintertime, the days will be blue and so on. It gets scary at the end. I don't think it's for each day, but I can't quite remember how it's laid out, but it shows how this temperature has gone up and up and up and up, and at the end, toward starting in the I think in the 2000s, there is no more blue anomalies. They're all red. So we're not below our average temperature. We're always above our average temperature, which that scares the crap out of me. Something we have to think about. Then last Friday night, out of nowhere, now, I was hoping it would rain Tuesday, and it did. It rained Tuesday afternoon. We got a good rain. It rained Wednesday afternoon. We got a good rain. Well, then last Friday night, they were not calling for any rain or storms. There were some storms that were up in Missouri that they thought were going to kind of skirt through northern Arkansas. Well, they ended up coming down over us, and they kicked the crap out of us. I'm not going to lie. Now, luckily out here, we did not get the wind that town got. But we got a lot of lightning, and you talk about somebody that was freaking out nervous. Of course, poor Wally is just scared to death every time it thunders or lightnings or my neighbors shoot off fireworks or guns or whatever, and Lucky is too. So they were right up on top of me. That's how I first knew it was coming, because they'll hear the thunder before I will. But town in Atkins, there were 80-mile-an-hour straight-line winds. And several places lost power and were without power for a day or more, which this time of year, that gets rough. Luckily, I have a whole house generator, but I did not get the generator that would run my air conditioner. I can run fans, but I can't run air conditioner. Now, out here, though, we did not lose power. We were very fortunate that we did not get the strong straight-line winds that town got. There were a lot of big trees down. The state park where my friend Sasha works lost some big trees. I had driven to town Saturday morning to go to my birthday party, and there was one area where I saw a big limb had fallen on this detached garage, and it had just smashed it. So it was a bad deal. So the other thing that happened on Monday, Bo went to the trainer. I finally took him to a trainer up north of Dover. It was quite funny because we had a little caravan going up there because Eleanor's family and Zoe's family wanted to go and see where he would be. So we got him up there. Christy, is working with him. He does not stand tied well. So that's been the first obstacle she has to overcome, is just working. She said today he finally kind of put it together. He's been there since yesterday. He finally kind of put it together and stood tied, and so she rewarded him by putting him up and letting him have, some food and all this stuff. So that was good news. I was really happy about that. So that was fun. And then to hear about, she posted a picture of him, and he's just doing this spoiled brat face, and I'm like, yeah, he's a brat. I will fully admit that. And part of that is me just not working with him like I needed to when he was a baby. He was born right before my parents' health started declining severely, and he just did not get the attention that he needed. So we've been having to make up for it, and that's harder to do when they're full grown and they're 1,200 pounds. You know, that's really something you need, and that's why I try to do that with Trixie. I try to make sure that she understands. I'm still working on the standard tide thing with her, but we're making progress on it. I mentioned my how hot it's been. My garden is kind of burned up. You know, I've lost all my squash plants, which frustrates me. As I mentioned last week, you know, I need to start putting my garden in sooner. And oh, now Willie wants up here too. Come here. Well, you can't, Willie. Hang on just a second. Come here. Come here. No, be nice. Y'all be nice. Okay. So, can y'all both be friends? Okay, thank you. So, my garden, you know, I mean, my okra is still doing good. My peppers are doing good. My tomatoes are fine. But, you know, my flower seeds have not done well because I put them in too late. And that's my own fault for putting them in too late. But, you know, live and learn. So my birthday party was a lot of fun. Like I said, we had a tea party, which was really neat. And what was really, really sweet is Eleanor, their present to me, which I didn't mention in acquisitions, they had heard me talk about my mom always made me a chocolate cake with white 7-minute frosting on it. And so Eleanor made me one. Which was so sweet. I was so touched by that. I mean, it was just, I was tearing up constantly at that party. And then Miss Marianne served us on her candle wick, and she has a candle wick dessert plate set. And she said, "When I'm gone, these are yours. I've put it in my will." And I'm like, "Well, please, I don't want them anytime soon. You keep them for a long time." But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. We've been riding with the kids. I have not rode this week because we've had so many kids. We have some kids visiting from out of town that are riding. But I've been working with my DB riders, as we call them. They're all horses that have come from my farm. And we've had a great week. So I'm going to post a couple little short little video clips of them riding. They're doing really well. I've been standing on the ground working with them. Now, one thing that did happen today, Sky, one of the mares that I've raised, she is 100% mare. And if you've ever been around horses, there's an old saying that says, you tell a gelding, you ask a stallion, and you negotiate with a mare. Luckily, Flame and Gusty are very well behaved, and they're usually really good. Sky decided that since her mom is not in town, she's going to push me around a little bit. And so today I was helping Davis, who's the young man that's visiting from out of town. He's a really good rider. He takes riding lessons. I believe his family lives in Washington, D.C. area, and he takes riding lessons. But he was trying to get her to canter, and I was standing on the ground, and I was tapping my flag on the ground, and she got past me, and she swung her behind toward me and kicked out at me. Lead mare said, "No, you don't, because I am the lead mare, whether they like it or not." And that's the problem. Sky is the middle mare in her herd. Gusty is the top mare, and Flame is sort of her lieutenant, and Sky is not happy about that. She wants to be boss, and she's not. So she thought she was going to try to boss me, and what happened is she got backed around the round pen about 3 times. Made Davis get off of her, and I backed her around the round pen. And it was funny because I look over my shoulder, and all the other horses, which all came from my place, were all going, "Oh, you made Mom mad." You can see that look on their face. It was kind of funny. But they've been doing really good this week. We've got this week, and then next week is our last week of riding. We have a dressage camp next week, and then we're done for the summer, which is going to be kind of sad because I really enjoyed. We've ridden for 8 weeks this summer, and it's been a lot of fun. But it is time to go back to the work for the fall. So, you know, that's how we afford to buy yarn and fabric and things for our horses, right? The last thing that I wanted to mention, and this is another takeaway from Mystic South. There was a workshop there about how to preserve bones and feathers and things like that, about how to honor the animal spirits on our land, and how to honor you know, animals that we have known in our lives, or animals that we maybe have helped shepherd out of this life because we found them injured or whatever. It was a really interesting workshop because it talked about sort of venerating these animal spirits, which I think is really important as a farmer. You know, we build little altars in our lives to the animals all the time. You know, everybody has, like, you know, if you show horses, you've got your horse's bridle maybe in a picture and the ribbons, and or if you've had a dog that has departed this life, sometimes you might have a picture of them in their collar or something. Those are little ways to honor that animal spirit. And I really liked that workshop because Jen or TJ did a really good job of talking about the importance of honoring these animal spirits and these animal guides, if you want to call them that we have crossed paths with us in our life. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at on the farm. I've been helping out, you know, sort of peripherally related. I've been helping out a group that is organizing an outdoor festival coming up at the end of August. It is another sort of earth-based alternative spirituality festival that's going to be up north of here. So I've been trying to brainstorm some ideas with them, and I'm looking forward to participating in that. I'm going to teach about weather lore, I think, at that workshop. And I may also do a guided hike. There's a really beautiful place up there called Pedestal Rocks that's not very far from the location. And I may take some people on a hike up there. And if I do, I'll vlog it. It'll be really neat. But that's coming up, you know, at the end of August. Maybe by then it won't be so blazing hot. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're at on the farm. I've got some elderberry syrup I need to finish off. It's in the refrigerator right now because I have just been tired, y'all. Last week that heat just killed me. But luckily the animals are managing to do okay through it. You know, keep cool water in front of them and keep everybody happy. So, but anyway, so I'm going to close it out and finish up with a few final thoughts. And trot. Okay, guys, my two final thoughts are kind of peripherally related to farming. There's a couple of quotes. There's one by Will Rogers that says, "A farmer has to be an optimist or he wouldn't be a farmer." And the other one is by a man named Henry Elaine that says, "Life on a farm is a school of patience. You can't hurry the crops or make an oxen in 2 days." And I was talking with somebody at Mystic South, my friends Marla and Gypsy actually, that have the farm, the Icelandic farm that I spoke about. And they were talking about, you know, it just takes time. It takes time to do things. But one of the things that I got out of going to a gathering the other night was that I am moving in the right direction with my farm. I just need to be, you know, I need to make sure that it's economically sound for me, and I need to just keep moving forward. So, you know, and sometimes that gets overwhelming when you're especially when you're alone or you're a woman alone on a farm. You just look around and you go, oh, I'm never going to get this done. There's no way I'm going to get this done. It just gets overwhelming. When you inherit an older place or you buy an older place, even though I bought it for my family, you know, fences don't stay fixed forever. Fences get broken and they have to get repaired. What are you eating? Piece of thread? Yeah. Okay. You know, and that can be very discouraging, or if you have a bad, you know, you have a bad setback with one of your animals, or if you're a crop farmer and you lose a crop, or you have a storm come through and smash your garage. It can be very discouraging, but at the end of the day, I think if you live on the land, you are an optimist. You do see the cycle of life. You see loss and death, and then you get to see rebirth, and that's the beautiful thing about living out here on this place, is you do get to see rebirth. Okay, so you know, one of the things that I was thinking about is my mom and dad, even though this is not my dad's vision of what he wants that farm to be, I think they would be proud of what I have done out here. They loved animals as much as I do, and I think that they would be proud knowing that, you know, like in the starfish story, I can't save them all, but I can make a difference to this one or that one or whatever. So that's been sort of a comfort to me in the last few days as I think about moving forward with this nonprofit that I want to start, this educational nonprofit, because in some ways it just seems like such a daunting task and so overwhelming, but then in other ways I'm like, I can do this. It's just one step at a time, make a plan and follow the plan. You know, it's like knitting or crocheting something big. You work through it a step at a time. You don't just look at it and go, oh, that's so big, I can't do that. It's just one row at a time, one row at a time. So, one row at a time, y'all. That's how we get through, you know, whether you're looking for a new job or you're trying to figure out what to do in life or even on a farm, one row at a time. So, I hope y'all are meeting your crafting goals. I hope y'all are all doing good. So until I see y'all again, be good to each other, take care of each other, and peace out, y'all. Bye.